Hey guys, today we're going to be building a fence, and we're going to be building it the right way. We've got an auger that we're going to use to dig holes, some Quikrete to set the posts, and I'm even going to put in a gate as well. Let's get started. So one of the issues with my house is that the backyard is for the dogs. There's a lot of little dead spots though that whenever it rains it gets all muddy. I tried to grow some grass, but unfortunately because it decided to drought, it didn't grow. So instead we've decided we're going to put a fence right here and make like a little pin here that has just the river rock, and that's going to be where the dogs go to the bathroom whenever it's raining or if it's really wet and muddy outside. So right now the existing fence is pretty nice. It's 4 foot tall, it's got some wire, it's dug in with posts set with concrete, and some 2x6s as spans. It's pretty sturdy, even for my big Pyrenees dogs that are, 100 pounds. And we're going to span all the way from there straight across. That's about 14 feet. As you can see, the dogs are curious as to what it is I'm doing exactly. Now I'm doing this all myself. If you're going to be digging into the ground, you do want to make sure that wherever you're digging, there's not something underneath that you could hit and damage. Like right here, I know because I dug the ditch, there is a gas line. So we need to avoid this spot if at all possible. I'm actually going to dig the post a little bit over here and then just let the fence span up to the wall over there. Potentially there also might be the electrical line that goes to the garage. I'm only going about 20 inches, so hopefully it's buried deeper than that, but if it's not and I hit it, a good precaution to take is to just shut off the electricity to the garage, which I'm going to do, so if I accidentally hit it, I can just repair it and go about my business. But make sure you take that into account. So I got a square right here, and I've got a string, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to get this as plumb as possible to the wall of the house, so that way I'm not building my fence crooked. Okay, so this pans out pretty well. I got this square with the wall over here, and I've also got this lined up with this pole. It's not going to line up with any post in the existing fence, but that is about exactly where this will be perpendicular to the existing fence. Louie doesn't like the squirrels and the trees moving. I'm actually going to take off those rails and that metal wire when I dig this hole because I want it to be right up against the existing fence. Okay, so this is what I settled on. We have the gate marked off right there. It's going to be about 46 inches. Each one of those posts would mark the center of the 4x4 I use, which should give me roughly 43 inches for the gate. And then I'm just going to dig one post over here. So now the next step is to get our new auger set up. So next thing I need to do is look at my bags of Quikrete. It's that quick set stuff specifically for posts. I'm going to figure out how much gravel I need, how much wire I need, get it all over here, start measuring the posts themselves, get them in there and leveled. That's really the big thing about any of these projects that you're doing at home. If you haven't done it before and there's a lot of things to cover, just take your time. If I don't finish today, I'll just keep on going tomorrow. So for my posts, I've got these 5 foot long 4x4s that are treated, they're pressure treated. I also got treated 2x6s, and then we also got our Quikrete. This is the fast setting mix. This is specifically made for setting posts, and it says it sets hard to 20 to 40 minutes, so we'll see how that goes. And then I got some gravel. Put these at the bottom of the hole, that way water will be able to drain away from the post. And we also have our 4 foot tall wire. That matches the wire that's on the existing fence. So I've taken some of my gravel, put it at the bottom there. So according to the calculator online, I need 2 bags of cement to go into this hole. First I'm going to put the post in. I've got my line set up here, and we're basically going to line up the edge of the post with this string, and that'll ensure that I'm plumb and straight all the way over to the wall. I've also got a post level, which is pretty neat. It just straps to the post, and you've got your bubble levels, so that way you can make sure that it's precisely straight up and down before you pour the concrete. So this first post is actually pretty easy because I can just use a screw to drive this in to hold it steady exactly where I want it. Now it's not, exactly level because the fence itself, the existing fence, isn't really level. And ideally the post would be in the center of the hole, but I think since it's also leaning against this post and everything else, the rest of these should be a little easier. Okay, so we have our posts leveled, and as you can see, I just used some scrap pieces of wood and put a screw in it just to keep it propped up. And now we're ready to add the concrete. So we've got the water poured in each hole, and now the bag says to cover up the rest of it with dirt, which we can take the fill dirt that we've drilled out of the hole and cover the top of the posts. Alright, so it's the next day. The bag says you can set the concrete in as little as 4 hours, but I figured I'd just let it go overnight. Alright, so first thing we're going to do is decide which side of the fence we want the rails to go on. I'm thinking that it's going to be the side closest to the house. Also, that will determine how the gate's going to open. Also, when we put the rails on this side, it won't interfere with the gutter that's going to be sitting here. But now, since we have this first rail established, since they're going to be evenly spaced over here, I can take those measurements and evenly space them on that rail. And they should line up since I have this one lined up with the bottom rail. Really the most important thing will be making sure that it's absolutely level, because if I'm off even by a degree or two, it'll be all crooked, since this is a kind of a long span of a 8-foot board. And then also I'm going to use some kind of wood or something to attach that rail to this post. Obviously there's a little bit of a deficiency in the design. Ideally you would have one rail going in between the two posts, but in order to get the stability to have that little extra piece where there is no post, I'll have to do it this way. I have my rail set and level, and they're lined up just about with those rails over here. For this last little piece, I'm going to cut a piece that's going to come right to here, and this will be where the gate's going to hinge. So cut all the way to there, and then I'm going to attach it with another little piece of board back here. That way we can kind of complete the span and keep it stable. Alright, I got my sawhorse set up over here, and I'm going to kind of show you what I do to measure these out. So what you do is you've got your measuring tape, you find your 42-inch mark, and then you make marks. Ideally you'd have a pencil. All I got's a pen over here. But the key is you got to do both sides, so that way you're cutting a straight line. So I mark 42 over here as well. I take a straight edge of some kind, line them up, and then mark your line all the way across. Alright, so this is what I've got. I've got a little piece of scrap 2x6 screwed into this rail, and I'm basically going to set it up like that. That way it'll be flush with that in there. Okay, I got the rails for my fence in. Everything's straight and level and more or less lines up with that fence. So now what we're going to do is we're going to cut off the top of these posts and then put our little cap rail on it. Okay, so now we got our fence all set up. So over here I took a little piece, cut a notch out to clear the down pipe. It's a little wobbly because, well, there's no post here, but this should be more than plenty to keep the dogs from getting out. All right. As you can see, my battery's running low, so I didn't film making the gate, but you can see it's roughly like the existing gate, but kind of strapped up. It sags a little bit, mainly because I could only get it so straight there, but overall it worked out pretty good. Now the last step is to just put the hog wire on, and then we'll be finished. Eventually. So at this point I ran out of battery and I decided to go ahead and just finish the fence, and then I forgot to film anything else. So at this point it's a month later, a little more than a month later, and fence is still holding up. And let me kind of go over some of the things that I missed and kind of give you a look. So first couple of finishing parts. This hog wire, I have it stapled with just a staple gun. My staple gun's real basic, so I had to hammer it in a little bit to get it the rest of the way, but overall pretty good. You'll notice that compared to the last video, I cut a little notch here because this used to be over here. Using pressure treated wood, it's going to shrink, so you have to keep that in mind. It's even shrunk off a bit from the house where it was almost touching. Now there's a good inch or so. I also had a scrap piece of rebar there. There's not really anything preventing the dogs from pushing the bottom of the fence there. So I put a little bit of rebar there, tied it up there, and also put this hose here just to kind of keep them from trying to get down under there. Ideally, if you're going to build a fence like this, you could actually take a 2x4 and screw it into your house. If my house was brick, I might have done that, but since it's just this siding and I don't know where the post is and I don't really want to shatter the siding, I'm just going to go without. But if you had brick with some masonry screws, that would be a really good option to anchor the end of your fence. So when it's not raining and the dogs kind of have free rein, I have the gate open and I just use a little hook right here to keep it open. The gate hasn't sagged too much, which I'm really pleased with. So the way I actually built this gate, instead of trying to hope that I measure everything exactly right, what I did was basically cut these 3 rails about the length I needed them, and then I actually mounted these first. I mounted just the rail with the hinge to the fence up here and down here. I trimmed off the end so that there was clearance for the gate hardware. Once I had that, I added this piece to tie these 2 rails together. I added this piece, mounted the middle rail, and then finally I mounted this cross rail just for stability's sake. I'm not an expert builder, so I don't know if this should have actually been that way, but this seems fine. And then the last piece is just this little bottom part so the dogs aren't tempted to try to push. Oh cool, a spider's nest. Now as for this 2x4, I kind of ran out of wood. This is not pressure treated, so I fully expect this to rot away, but I basically put this so that way the gate hardware would line up with the fence. Really, this was just a little project. You can see there are some imperfections. The rail at the bottom there you can see is kind of warped. Not everything is completely straight, But overall, I'm happy with it, and this is really about building something that, at least from a distance, looks good and is strong enough to keep my dogs from getting into trouble. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll have a link to all the materials and things that I used to build the fence here. Hope you enjoyed, and thanks for watching.